Hello YouTube audience. Today is November the 8th, November the 10th, 2021. It's mid to late fall here in the Pacific Northwest, and I would like to do some fall work on my Japanese maples and camellia. So these are relatively small works. So each tree should not take too long. So I'm going to do several trees at a time. Okay, so let me take a look. So this is a great time to work on the trees because it's basically go dormant. Most of the leaves has fallen, and you can prune the trees and without sacrificing the leaves, because the leaves has already shriveled up and ready to drop. So this is Japanese maple, Aesopon-matum. The variety name is Fire Glow. You can see the leaf color is red, and it's basically in the spring and fall it turn a fire glow red, and in the rest of the time it's red but a little bit purple in it. That's because it has a little bit of the green. Does it look purple? Because it is not that it never has green leaf in the whole year. It grows quite slowly. So I'm just examining all the wires and see if there is a need to remove some of the wires. I just removed one because there is a biting here. You can see this branch has grown pretty long, so it's a good time to cut it. Pretty nice leaf color. And next year there would be 2 shoots. I probably will cut off one. Because in my opinion, the tree is still in very early stage of development, and it's not really the time to develop ramification yet. Let's see. A lot of the wires has been there for a year, a whole growing season. So it should already hold the branch. Okay, that's the case here. So that's pretty nice. Okay, so here, this is probably going to be the main branch. and this would be a secondary out of that. So the structure is pretty much perfect. Sometimes when you prune it, it doesn't really do what you want, and this is that. Without bifurcating, but that's fine. The dead stump, gonna clean it up, and it's going to grow from the base again. The other reason why it's growing slowly is because it's already in a bonsai pot, and in a bonsai pot it normally grows slower. And obviously the squirrels or birds has visited the soil and has disturbed some of my sphagnum moss on here, but doesn't matter. I'm going to recover the surface with sphagnum moss. So that's not a big deal. Currently you're actually looking at the back of the tree. And this would be the front. There is a wound here which is healing nicely. So that's doing well. These leaves we can get rid of. This branch structure is developing very, very nicely. This could be a branch. That means we don't need the back branch, but we can keep it for now. Yeah, we can keep it for now. This is sacrificial. We have a sacrificial leader. Hopefully it's going to grow strong and create a good taper from there. It looks like we have plenty of shoots ready to pop. I suspect the wire is probably ready. Probably already hold the branch, so I suspect that I can remove the wire. very, very slightly biting in, which is fine because this is a tree in early development, and slight biting in would not hurt the tree. And also this is a sacrificial leader, so it's probably going to ultimately be cut off the tree, so it doesn't really matter that much. Okay, the wire has held after about a full growing season with a little bit of bite mark, but it's going to heal pretty soon. And so next I'm going to change out the fertilizers. These fertilizers has been here for a year, so it's probably completely released all the nutrients in there. So I can throw out the old bag of fertilizer. The squirrels or birds must have taken one of the bags. The soil is half akadama, half pumice, so it's a mix for mature trees, but this is tree in development, so it's not really the best mix for the tree. That's probably why this is developing, growing very slowly, but I think I can accommodate that by ramping up the fertilization scheme. Okay, so there are some soil or moss getting dig out by bird or squirrels, some type of animal. So I'm just going to add a little bit to it. These moss are probably very nice material for birds to make nests with, so they like to dig some out. Doesn't matter too much for me as long as they don't dig my tree out. Okay, so next I'm going to wipe the pot a little bit because it has been outside for a year, may have collected some dirt and things like that, so slightly wipe it a little bit, although it's probably going to get dirty pretty soon, but just slightly wipe it a little bit. And I'm going to add more fertilizer to it. Bags of fertilizers. For this one, I'm going to use the acid lover. Because the soil is a neutral soil, so I can use a little bit of an acidic fertilizer. The good thing about this fertilizers is it's not just fertilizer, but also it has mycorrhiza and beneficial bacteria in there. So, and it's also a relatively low strength fertilizer. It's 343, so it's probably too low. The strength is probably too low, so I can add a little bit of other fertilizers to it to help the strength a little bit. Well, but I give quite a lot. I think I'm going to get 1 spoon of this and the other with the higher strength. This is a little bit too low in strength. It's like making tea. I'm gonna get the other acidic fertilizer. The other one is a little bit higher in strength, but don't have as much bioactive ingredients. Okay, I'm going to take this one, Lily Miller, which is the only thing that like a lay person need to care is the 3 number, 10, 5, 4. The higher the number is, the stronger the fertilizer is. Actually already used up a lot of the fertilizer, so I said the 343 is too low in strength. Mainly is talking to the first number, which is nitrogen. Nitrogen is a bit low there. So this has a 10 nitrogen, so it's a little bit higher. Add a little bit, 1 spoon to it, so that it has plenty of nutritions to prepare next year's growth. A bunch of beneficial bacteria. That's very good for the plant. And just spreading out the fertilizers in the 4 directions of the plant. that it helps to guide the spread of the root. The roots will seek out the fertilizer. This is a good practice because the tea bag kind of filtered the fertilizer a little bit, so that the fertilizer, when it decomposes, hopefully it's not going to clog the soil. But if you repot the tree often, you don't need to worry about clogging the soil. Because before the soil is clogged, you already changed the soil. I think this method is more for mature trees. In theory, I could just completely feed this tree with inorganic and just make it grow like crazy. That would be good enough, but I guess I just want to do it more perfectly. Okay, this is one done. Let's move on to the next. So this is my ukigumu air layering the top of my original tree. So it's an air layering and it's growing quite well this year. So I only see one long shoot that needs pruning, so I'm going to prune it off here. The rest of them don't seem to need pruning. I just want to check the wires, and it has hold, so I can remove it. So it took a whole year for this to hold. I guess these variety tree just grow slower. So this is ukigumu, floating cloud Japanese maple. Because this is air layering, meaning that it's on its own root, so it's supposed to be weaker than the ukigumu you get from the market, because they are probably grafted onto a strong rootstock. So that's why I think it's growing quite slow. But also this is the first year separated from the original tree and growing on its own root. So it may also make it grow a little bit slow. But we have one running shoots. That's a good news. 4 trunk tree, which some purist is going to frown upon, but it's fine. From a traditional bonsai standpoint, 4 is the worst number you can have, but I don't care. I'm just trying to get rid of some of the dead stump. If it has completely dried out, I'm going to get rid of it. Some stump hasn't completely dried out yet, so I'm going to leave it. This one, I think it's done. Okay. That would heal very well. This one. Okay, I will probably seal it a little bit. These two hasn't completely dried out yet, so just a little bit of sealant should be sufficient. Okay, used to be 5 trunk, but this one died. So I'm just going to get rid of this one. It's too tiny. Yeah, so this is perfect 4 trunk tree. It's very strange because this time of the year the tree should not bleed, but it bleeds a little bit anyway. It's probably because our weather is so wet. To prevent the bleeding, I'm going to seal that tiny bit too. So this is not the season for bleeding, but it bleeds a little bit anyway. Probably because the strength of this shoot. Because all the strength go there, does it also bleed a little bit? But doesn't matter. Okay. Again, I'm going to give it 2 different fertilizers. One scoop of the Dr. Earth Acid Lover. I'm fertilizing quite aggressively at this point because this is in early development. What I wanted to do is to grow. If it grows too coarsely, I can cut off everything and regrow the branch structure. And then 1 spoon of the Lily Miller. My trees are having a luxurious life. Plenty of fertilizers. So this is 1 air layering. It's not put together from 4 air layerings, although it has 4 trunks. This is the top of a tree, and somebody topped the tree, and from where it was cut, multiple shoots grow out. Thus, I air layer the whole top of the tree. To make a multi-trunk style. Excuse me. This one is always strange. It bleeds a little bit, even when the season is right. The fall pruning and fall work, the advantage of it is the maple normally doesn't bleed that much, but this air layer still bleed nonetheless. That's probably due to its being relatively young. So this is the middle of my original Ukigumu nursery stock. It's plotted in a tilted way, which is not intentional. It just tilted. So next year, when the repotting season comes, I'm going to slightly tilt it upward a little bit so that it's no longer tilted at such an angle. So this will obviously be the leader. It bifurcates relatively early, so I would need to decide. So all these are sacrificial, so I could cut it off, but given the fact that it still bleed right now, not sure if I should cut right now. I'll wait until repotting and then just seal it. I will wait until repotting. Probably because our season is just so wet, and even when it's late fall, it's still full of water in the system. But bleeding is what maples does. It does that very well. So not a big deal. I hope the video is still running. My cell phone is running out of storage, so sometimes the video would suddenly stop, but if it stops, not a big deal. Next time when my Go Live is approved, I probably will do Go Live so that the video is directly transformed into a YouTube video without storage consuming my storage space in my cell phone. But if this video suddenly stops, note that it's my cell phone run out of storage. Last time it stopped at 40 minutes. We are at 39 already, so it's entirely possible. Well, you may ask, if the tree has already lost all their leaves, why are you fertilizing it? Because even after it loses its leaf, it's still growing its stem and its root, so it still needs nutrient. And this is also one of the best time to fertilize, because it prepare the tree for the next year. So we are not actually fertilizing it for the outcome you can see right now, but for next year. And next spring, we are not going to fertilize until we get the first flush of growth harden off. So that would be several months. So this is for the whole winter season. So we need to be quite generous on that, because it's not just for fall, for winter, but also for spring. So that's quite a lot of fertilizers we need to give. So this fertilization would benefit the tree for 3 seasons of the year. That's why it is so important. So we only have 4 seasons. Okay. So this is the middle part of my Ukigumu Japanese maple. All these little one is going to be cut off. Only this main trunk is going to be safe next year. Okay, this leading thing is dying off nicely. So next year, when this leading shoot gains strength, I'm going to cut off this original leader. It was originally a side branch. This was the trunk, and the top was cut off from here. This is the middle part. So survive its first year. Hopefully the next year would even be better. So this is the base of my Ukigumu Japanese maple, which is currently being ground layer. The ground layer is confirmed to be successful. I've already fertilized it for fall this year, but a animal still one of the fertilization bags, so I'm just going to add one to it. I'm not going to use the high concentration fertilizer. I'm going to use the low concentration because I want to inoculate. This fertilization is not mainly for nutrition, because in the bottom I've added some osmotic coat to it, which is a high concentration inorganic fertilizer, which should last through the winter. The one I'm adding here is trying to inoculate this new root system. This tree is currently being ground layer, and I'm trying to create a new root system to create a nice root base. So let's see. So this was the leader that I was trying to create, but a stronger shoot came out, so I probably going to take that as the leader instead, because the original leader was cut, so it's not going to grow as strong as the leader. So when you want a branch or a trunk line to develop rapidly, you need a shoot that's very strong, that's not being cut. If you cut the shoot, it's going to grow slower. I want a trunk that's going to grow fast. And you can see this has not lose all its leaves yet, unlike its air layering. It may, due to the rootstock, it's in a different rootstock, or it may due to the different amount of light it receives. Multiple branch grow from this place, which is normal for the top of the tree. But I'm going to get rid of this original leader. Nice, pretty nice fall color. I'm also going to get rid of this sideways shoot because we have one here. This one is a better shoot. We don't need, so this I will save as a back branch. I may develop it in the future. And I'm just going to cut it cleaner. So goodbye the original leader I thought it would be, but it's not, turned out it's not as strong as this one. So I'm going to take this one as the new leader. I don't think there is a wire on this tree right now, so I don't need to worry about wire mark. I'm probably just going to give one wire on the leader. To probably just slightly bring it up. But I'm going to wire it relatively loosely. Get it to be relatively upright, so hopefully it will gain even more strength from this And this will be a back branch which is appropriate. We have a left branch, right branch, left branch, a back branch. So the distribution of branches is pretty nice right now. Here is a tiny bark branch there, which I could get rid of. These long branches, I still want it to grow a little bit, to thicken it, because I believe the deciduous tree, the branches should be in a different proportion to the trunk than a apically dominant conifer, because a lot of the traditional bonsai artists would say that you should have very thin branches compared to the trunk, but this mainly apply to a highly apically dominant conifer, because it is the apical dominance making the trunk that thick, because all the energy goes into growing the height of the tree. So a formal upright conifer, it would be very appropriate to have thick trunk and thin branches. But deciduous tree, maples, they are more of a broad growing tree, so the branch is actually thicker compared to a conifer. So I think a branch of a maple, they could actually, in a mature tree, if you look carefully, they could actually be maybe a third or even a half of the thickness of the trunk. So it's not that small. When you look at a apically dominant conifer, oh, then it's crazy. A branch, even the first branch, could be a 20th of the trunk thickness. That's thick. A 20th of the trunk thickness. That's thick. It could even be 1/100th of the trunk thickness, which you obviously cannot create that kind of proportion in a bonsai. Because the smallest shoot, if you multiply it by 100, you have a crazily fat trunk. But a broad growing deciduous tree, I think the ideal proportion is 1/3. Sometimes you can get to even 1/2. So this one is close. I think maybe 1/4 right now. So the thickness of this part is good, but this long part, I still want it to thicken a little bit more before I cut this off. Other than that, I think this is looking pretty good. The leader, of course, you will need to let it grow and wait for it to almost catch up with the trunk, just slightly smaller than the trunk. You can see the graft union here is thick and the middle part is thinner but relatively have no taper, so the taper is created here to here, but now it's too exaggerated, so the leader will need to be allowed to grow for maybe several years to allow it to thicken to the point we would like to see. So we have branches left, right, left, and back. So the branch distribution is quite good. The next year we are going to cut off all the roots in this pot and just use these roots to reconstruct the root system of this maple, because the root system it came with was no good. Okay, so that's this one. Quite simple. I think most of the bonsai videos are mainly cut, and I may be more reserved in cutting them. But I think ultimately it's going to make the process slightly faster. Just let the branches, you still need to thicken or to develop, grow without impeding their growth. I think it's going to make the process faster. Again, the birds and animals, they are picking out my moss to make their nest. So a lot of these fibrous roots are probably dead, but I'm not trying to make an exposed root style anyway. So this is the Camellia that has a crazy root system, which I'm trying to, instead of hiding it, I'm trying to accentuate. I'm trying to call it a bicyclist. Hopefully one day I'm going to find a bicycle for it to ride on. Has a very crazy root system. I think the tree is still very well pruned, and the wire has hold the branch structure very nicely. So I don't really need to do any pruning right now. It's good. Ultimately, I'm probably going to cut the tree here, and make the branch, make a tiny tree, like from here, and a relatively small tree. Not a shohin, it's too big for shohin, but a relatively small tree. And hopefully I'm going to make this into air layering and this into air layering. Now I just need to fertilize. For Camellia, I'm probably going to use the pure Dr. Earth because it doesn't need much fertilizer. probably going to get Dr. Earth and this Jobs, which is also organic but low strength. I think this is a 444. Oh wow, 444, 8% calcium. That's extremely high. But I'm going to use some low strength fertilizer because Camellia don't need much fertilizer. That's what I heard. But this is the first time I fertilize this plant with organic fertilizer. So importantly, I'm trying to inoculate the tree with beneficial microorganisms. If with the final size of the bonsai in mind, this is obviously over potted, but currently this pot fits the size of the current tree. The reason I want to ultimately make this a small tree is I want to put the crazy root system front and center. So currently the root system is a crazy one, very untraditional, and the top of the tree is very traditional. So it doesn't really have a unity of its style, but it's a beautiful tree anyway. But ultimately, I'm trying to make 3 trees out of this. Each with its own unique style. So if we just imagine the future of the tree, so the current root base, current bottom of the tree is obviously a crazy one, and this side would be a classic single trunk informal upright tree, just like a pine, and this would be maybe a twin trunk tree on this side. So the question is, when I cut it here, would it back bud? That's the question. Hopefully it will. hopefully this will inoculate the soil system with beneficial bacteria. I think the soil in this pot is half Kanuma and half pumice, so it's completely inorganic. So get some organic fertilizer to cultivate the bacteria system. Still completely wet in here. I think that's all. I think that's all the tree I want to work on today. Well, the other tree we can take a look. I'm just not going to work on it. So this is 360 look of my Camellia. In the future, I plan to develop this into 3 trees. 1 tree here beneath my hand and 2 trees above my hands. Yeah, let's see how it goes. That's this tree. 1 more tree that's not really potted up yet, but it is a Japanese maple air layer. We can simply take a look. So this is the air layering. This is a Sengukaku, or coral bark maple. In the winter, its characteristic is its red bark in the winter. It's a garden tree. It's from a garden tree, which this branch is overgrown and it's going to be pruned off. And anticipating that future, instead of just pruning this branch off and let it burn, I air layer it. Still, the gardener went ahead and cut part of this. I want this to be a formal upright tree, so I would like this to be intact, but the gardener cut it already. It's a tree that grows in front of our community, our building. So you can still see a seed here, but it's we have tons of roots in here, and next spring, I'm going to repot it into maybe a Anderson flat. To help it develop a very strong root system. Currently, we can already see roots growing out of the bottom of the tree, and so next year I think I'm quite confident we can make this work. And in the Anderson flat, there would be a lot of anchor points where I can kind of bend these down a little bit and start to develop the branch system, the branch structure. but I'm pretty happy with the air layering here. We are not going to work on this. I'm just going to take a look, document what the air layering look like at first. I air layer it in a smaller container, and then I put it into pure moss. In a larger container, it's still too small for this tree. So next year I'm going to put it in a big one, in the Anderson flat. Because the gardener cut the apex, so I would have to develop this as a new apex, and not so formal up right now, but it's okay. You never get it perfect. Okay, I hope you enjoy this video, and I will see you next time. Magically, I think the video is still running, so I hope you have a nice day and take care of yourself. Bye.